Mario Kart 64 is one of the weirdest games in the Mario Kart series. I mean, this game had people blinded by nostalgia like you've never seen before. The first 2 decades of its release, it saw acclaim from critics and fans alike. It did reinvent the kart racing genre and changed the game for modern racing games as we know it. But nowadays, I feel like it sees less approval and more disapproval within not only the Mario Kart community of fans, but just people in general. I mean, this game just isn't what people used to think it was, and yeah, maybe you can make the case that people are just less blinded by nostalgia than they used to be, but there's also just a general idea that maybe the game isn't that good after all. Well, today I'm here to test that by looking at every single track in the game and ranking them in order. The way this works, just like last time, just like the last 2 times, F tier, absolutely trash, D tier, pretty bad, C tier, very middle of the line, B tier, pretty good, it has a few things, but I might go out of my way to pick it, kind of depends. A tier, I'll go out of my way to pick it pretty often, and S tier, I'll pick you 9 times out of 10 if you were on the board. With that intro out of the way, let's get right into it. Starting us off, the worst track in the game, Frappe Snowland. Man, this track. Listen, I love difficulty in games, but I hate when people forget to draw the line between difficulty and complete BS. And the possibilities on this track are just absolutely terrible. Before I dig too deep though, let's start with what I like. Nothing. This track is just terrible around. So now on to what I dislike. At least Snowland, it had some kind of cool hazards. And Ghost Valley 2.
Thanks for the tip. I guess I'll just live home then.
We can ignore that one, but this is still terrible, alright? The atmosphere is just boring. It's like Nintendo wanted you to imagine what the North Pole would be like if Mario characters were everywhere. When did anybody want this? And what is up with that wall section at the end? It's just empty. What is this supposed to resemble? Something I don't understand? Is this like a monument I've never seen? What's going on? And it's also just why? It's just a boring conclusion, right? Other than all that, right, the snowman hazards, they're a good idea until you remember bananas exist in this game, so the relentlessly annoying CPUs will replace any open surface existing with those bananas instead. Just some bad game design, really, that's all it is. But that's not the end of it, alright? They, for some goddamn reason, made the floor even more slippery in this mode. This map, this track, I'm not gonna even do a retake on that, I don't care. Alright, as if these controls weren't damn hard enough. Man, this is just an easy F tier. That's all I have to say. God damn it, man, this was terrible. The next F tier is Calamari Desert. Okay, going into this track, I had some serious expectations, seeing as some people really enjoyed this one. Why? Like, this just made no sense at all. Let's start with the main gimmick. We can all agree, right, that putting an intense race to a screeching halt is just annoying, right? So then why the hell would you make this track's gimmick a train that stops you to a complete stop? The intensity of the entire race completely ending for a train, that out of nowhere, by the way. Right, that's your gimmick. And even if you're not that good at this game, you'll probably find yourself stopping for a total of 1 time on the first lap. After that, that's it. This lame gimmick just disappears. It just becomes a set piece to a completely empty track. And let's not also forget, this is the last track in the first cup, so it should offer a little bit of a challenge, and it should be a step up from the first tracks in the cup. Yet somehow, this one is practically driving in a circle 3 times, and that's it. The theming is terrible, the lack of hazards is just so apparent, and it feels like a SNES or Super Circuit track with how flat and barren it is. It's an easy F tier, but it's not quite Ghost Valley 2 bad though. Moo Moo Farms, first D tier, it's fine. That's really the problem, is that it's so early and it's just fine. It's not really a good impression. I get it's not the first track, so it doesn't really need to be, but I mean, it's just kind of lame, right? The main gimmick is that there's these Monty moles in the ground that are going to come up and hit you, and that works on the first lap because you want to take the tightest and most narrow, fastest section. So it's a cool idea. But then once you realize you could just go around it and still be faster than every other racer, it's kind of bland and boring. They're too easy to avoid, and after that there's no hazards at all. Like, at least on Moo Moo Meadows, they put the cows on the track, but on this game, they put the cows outside the track and had the audacity to make the profile for this track the cows. How does that make any sense? There's no cows on the track. Why are they... You clickbaited me. You clickbaited me in a Mario Kart game. Like, what? It's definitely a D tier. I mean, it's just not that good. Luigi Raceway is the next track to hit the D tier, and I mean, yeah, it's okay. I mean, it's a fine track to start the game, don't get me wrong. It's a good track to start the game, actually, to be honest. I mean, just like I said in my Super Circuit ranking, though, if you didn't watch that, there's a little iCard there. Go ahead, click it. Click it. I'm waiting. Anyway, just like I said in my Super Circuit ranking, I mean, just like I'm going to say in basically every ranking at this point, if it keeps heading like this, I mean, that's all it is. It just starts the game. Right? There's nothing special about this track. It's not really a crazy opener. I mean, the music is cool, I guess, but there's nothing really too noticeable. Like, when I play this track, I just think, I mean, yeah, it's Luigi Raceway. It's a track. I'm driving on road. That's cool. I don't have much to say about this one. I'm not going to go into a spiel about why I don't care about it, because I don't care about it. So, that's a D tier. The next D tier is Mario Raceway, and finally I can have an actual opinion on this one, because yeah, it's definitely a track, alright. I mean, it's fine. I really don't see why we'd be getting a circuit track so late into the game. That's its main issue, is that, you know, it's like the end of the second cup, right? Maybe, is it the third track in the second cup or something? Maybe the last one? And we really ended on a Mario Raceway? I mean, a circuit track? Technically, it's not a circuit, but like, look at it, it's a circuit. Like, seriously though, there's only one thing sticking out here, and it's that little warp pipe that you could go under for 0.1 second. Other than that, it's literally your typical circuit track with a lack of hazards. And, well, I admit it does have somewhat of an interesting layout. It's really just boring, other than those things. I mean, it's got some interesting concepts, yes. Honestly, you could make the debate that this is worse than Moo Moo Meadows and Luigi's Circuit, because at least those two are the start of the game, so they're understandably easy. I just put those two lower because I feel like this one's got just a little bit of extra sauce to it, difficulty-wise, to make it better. The next D tier is Banshee Boardwalk, and this track was super hard to rank, mainly because after my first lap, I had a lot of positives, but then after my second lap, I had more negative things than positive things going on with the track, and then after my third lap, I just felt more confused than anything. And after playing this one a few more times and understanding it better, I think I just dislike it. It's just another Ghost Valley track, but in 3D, which unlike a track like Koopa Beach, doesn't really work to its advantage very well. It's kind of boring, to be honest. And don't get me wrong, I really do like that haunted house section, even though you only go through it for like 2.3 seconds, and it looks more like a crack house than a haunted house, but I digress, right? There are even more issues though, because there are some out of nowhere sharp turns on this track, and I think the boos hovering over your screen 24/7 are more annoying thematically than interesting. There is a Cheep Cheep though, so this one really can't go any lower than D tier. The first C tier is Rainbow Road. I mean, are we very surprised? I really don't want to spend too much time on this one, so here we go. This is the definition of mid. The hazards are good. That's about it. The laydout's nice, but the track is far too long to be stretched out to 3 laps. I mean, I genuinely dread when I have to play this one. It's just boring. And it wouldn't even be boring if it wasn't so gruelingly long, right? There's just a problem where if it was one lap, cool, I'm fine with that. But the fact that it's 3 laps of this gigantic track, it just makes it a not fun time to play, and it's way too long. I'm trying to play Mario Kart with my friends. Each track should be like, at most, 2 minutes in length, right? I'm not trying to sit here for 4+ minutes playing Rainbow Road with my friends. Like I said, I don't want to keep this way too long. I've been yapping for a minute now, so it's a C tier. That's all I gotta say. This was very unexpected, but Bowser's Castle falling into C tier was a big disappointment. I truly don't get why people act like this track is some sort of saving grace given to us from the Nintendo gods, when in reality it's just fine. Let's get the negatives out of the way first. These thwomps are so bulky. When I tell you that not even the CPUs could get past them, I mean it. Like, damn, I thought you said you were cutting this month, bro. And what's up with this track's layout, alright? Am I playing N64 Bowser's Castle, or am I playing 90-degree turn simulator with Bowser's Garden as a set piece? Before I finish this segment, this bit right here goes out to you Bowser's Castle N64 fans. Listen. I get it. You like this track for some weird reason. But let me tell you, it's not even a top 4 Bowser's Castle track in the series. Hell, it's not even a top 5. And if the new 8 Deluxe remaster of Bowser's Castle 3 has anything to say, then this track isn't even top 6. So please, stop meat riding this for me. Thank you. Appreciate it. Wholeheartedly. Truly do. The first track sliding into the B tier is Wario Stadium, and it makes a lot of sense. The negative reception on this one, I don't really feel is all too warranted. Sure, it's very long, but I feel like it's interesting all throughout and has a very fun layout. Still though, it does lack hazards, and there are some unnecessary sharp turns out of nowhere that can be the difference between a first and a third. The theme of this track is pretty cool too, and while it isn't perfect, I think it's a pretty good first stadium track, and I feel it fits the game very well. And I know there is an argument that's ongoing to this day about how it's super wide, and even though it's this late in the game and it's this long, right? People say, well, if you're a super long track, you have to be very narrow. I feel like this wide section is warranted, especially since I still see myself hitting these walls quite often. And don't say skill issue, because it definitely is not one. Choco Mountain flies itself into the B tier, and yeah, this one's solid. I really have very little to say. I mean, it's short and sweet while still being fairly difficult and having some interesting hazards to really put the hammer to the nail. It's not perfect, that's for sure. It's a little too tight in my opinion, and it has some odd narrow turns, but it's interesting enough to land in B tier if you ask me. Still though, there is like that thing where you could fall off the track. I know some people really dislike that, but I love it because clearly it was intentional. Because if you play this track on 50cc, like you probably will be for the first time, there's a guardrail there, so you can't fall off. Whereas if you play it on the other CCs, you're going to be more used to the layout, you're going to be ready for that sharp turn. So if you fall off, it's punishment because you know how to play this track already. And if you go in on 100 or 150cc, then you're just stupid. You've never played the track before and you expect to just understand hard mode the first time. So I feel like it's definitely warranted a B tier. DK Jungle Parkway is B tier, and this track is pretty sweet. Man, I'm running out of words to call these tracks. Anywho, the theming of this track is just a jungle that is owned by Donkey Kong and was turned partially into a parkway, which is
I mean, pretty interesting, I guess. And this track definitely lacks hazards, but it has a fun layout. And this big jump right here, you see this one that I'm showing on screen right now? It has a lot of cutoff opportunities. I just wish this boat was textured because you can go right through it. But other than that, some small things, and this track overall is pretty good. I will admit though, the music is a little underwhelming. It's nothing too annoying, but nothing too amazing to make the track stick out, to be honest. It's almost C tier, but I'm going to give it top of B because I actually did like this one layout-wise. Toad's Turnpike, it's not the 8 version, lands into the A tier, and this one really was a debate between S and A, but I ended up settling right here. This was a very good and honestly original idea, for the time at least, and you can really tell when making this track that the devs were thinking of interesting and off-the-wall ideas they could utilize 3D visuals on, and man, it shows. That sunset in the distance is so pretty, and the idea of driving on a highway is so cool in Mario Kart. The cars driving by really makes this one feel like a road trip. I do want to keep these short, so I won't say too much more, but man, this one works well visually. And it has good difficulty and truly a unique setting with fun hazards. Much better than that creepy remake or the other dozens of off-brand ones that followed. Looking at you, literally staring, beating my eyes at you, I hate you. I hate you! Royal Raceway is landing in the A tier, and let me just begin by saying I was forever obligated to give this S tier just for the sheer amount of carrying it does for this wacky banana cup. Nevertheless, its original counterpart is very good. The setting is a little bland, sure, I mean, it is just like the other circuits, but the layout easily makes up for this alone. And I'll fully admit, I did find myself falling off some of these difficult turns from time to time, especially at the ending right there. Really, I don't have too much to say. Like we've already said before, it is a circuit track, so it can't land an S even if I wanted to. And like a lot of these tracks, I do wish there were some more hazards, but I don't knock it too hard because I do find the track itself fairly difficult. And the layout is absolutely amazing. The music is cool, it's an A tier, and that Peach's Castle bit doesn't matter. Alright, this is where things do get a little wacky, but I'm gonna do it, man, because this is my opinion and not yours. Koopa Beach is absolutely soaring into the S tier, and yeah, this one absolutely bangs. Alright, the atmosphere is very nice, with the big Koopa-shaped rocks all around the track. This truly feels like a deserted island that just became a racetrack because, I don't know, like, maybe Mario saw an island and he was all like, you know what? I'm going to take over. Hazard-wise, this is great. Multiple difficult narrow sections, and the water gimmick is amazing. You can either risk it and drown by possibly going too deep if it comes up to the currents, or take the faster approach and possibly snag a last place steal at the finish line. Not to mention there are crabs littered all around there, so the risk versus reward is very risky and very rewarding. There's multiple shortcuts around the track that just make this one feel absolutely amazing to play, and there's a huge shortcut off to the side that you can take with like a mushroom or something, and you just don't really see that in Mario Kart nowadays. There's kind of smaller shortcuts, but you never see massive ones. This track is just overall amazing, and it represents the best character in the game. How is it not S tier? They really took the Super Mario Kart edition of this track and just leveled it up by tenfold. Absolutely amazing stuff here, man. I know people are going to disagree with this one, but it's finally time. I'm doing what nobody else will. I'm taking a shot nobody else is willing to take, and that's throwing Sherbert Land right up into the S tier. For some weird reason, I'm consistently seeing people throw this in D tier and C tier. Why? The one thing I enjoyed about snow tracks in Super Mario Kart was the idea of a shattered ice beginning to separate within a frozen tundra. It's just a cool theme, and you're lying if you don't think it is. In Super Mario Kart, it was hard to capture that idea with it being 2D, but with Mario Kart 64 making the move to 3D, the devs really get their chance to shine with this one, and man does it show. The atmosphere is absolutely amazing, and having a tucked away snow cave be the place where the penguins live is such a nice touch. Speaking of the snow tunnel, I love how the track as a whole really challenges the player with its wide setting. Like, yeah, you could take the sharper, tighter, and harder to pull off turns, and you'll most likely go faster, or you can go wider with an easier turn which wards an item box, though it's slower. It really makes the player have to decide what they're doing before they just recklessly drive ahead. And it's not like it's hard to navigate, and the penguins work wonderfully as hazards in the caves and outside of the caves. And unlike Sherbert Land, this track isn't slippery as to play on, alright? Man, was this a joy to play. Just such a cool track in an easy S tier. And if I know a lot of people are going to disagree with me, so please tell me why I'm wrong in the comments if you do disagree. And yes, I am totally baiting for engagement by saying that. Yoshi Valley is easily the best track in this game. The valley itself is surrounded by a mountaintop, which is cool, and the giant Yoshi egg at the end is just a great touch. But the main gimmick of this track is where it truly shines, not only in the amount of routes you could choose from, but also the fact that you don't know your placement. Sure, you could check the mini-map and see near the end, but being in that absolute maze in the middle of the track and not knowing what your placement is, with everybody scattered around, is just so cool. It really gives me a sense of anticipation and a bit more energy to see if I win. And it makes that final stretch so much more interesting because it really can be the difference in placement. Typically, Rainbow Roads embody Mario Kart games, but this time, I think a simply themed track like Yoshi Valley truly serves as an amazing embodiment of Mario Kart 64. Sure, the controls suck and the game can get annoying, but at the end of the day, Mario Kart 64 is a chaotic mess, and that's what makes this game truly incredible. Also, they had porcupines on this track, so, I mean, you know.